Hello, welcome to Breakfast All Day. I'm Matt. Christy is here. Alonzo is here. And neither Alonzo or I are the woman in the window. Christy is in that
I've got a
window
bunch of
right over there.
windows behind me.
Exactly.
The Zoom window.
If
Yes.
I am just looking, wondering what's happening. Who is getting killed across the street? Or so I think. Yes, this is Rear Window for the COVID age, totally inadvertently, because of a confluence of calamities has delayed this. One of which is this was a Fox movie that got kind of put in purgatory when Disney bought Fox. This is like the last Fox 2000 movie, I want to say.
And I think recut.
Well, here's
reshot,
here's why. This is my next item.
Additional photography.
So apparently, test audiences couldn't figure out what was going on, and so they had to do a bunch of reshoots. And the reshoots, as we will talk about, I'm guessing, like completely spell everything out in ways that really weaken the film. Because it's the mystery of it and like the lingering kind of what's really going on here is what's interesting about it versus like a bunch of reveals where people stand there and explain themselves. And that's kind of boring. And then COVID hit. And so Netflix picked it up and it's out now on Netflix for you to watch. And it's got this incredible cast. The star is Amy Adams. Amy Adams is the woman in the window.
Woman in the window.
She is a psychologist, an agoraphobic child psychologist named Anna Fox, and she lives in this brownstone in Manhattan. And she's not left in 10 months for reasons that we learn about as the film goes on. And she has her food delivered. And more importantly, she has her wine and her prescription pills delivered because something traumatic has happened to her that has caused her to be so fearful. And she has these therapy sessions with her therapist, played by Tracy Letts, who also wrote the screenplay based on the 2018 best-selling novel of the same name. And those early scenes, I actually kind of dug, like establishing her mood and her daily routine. And the scenes with Tracy Letts have a nice little crackle and snap to them that indicates that she's smart and she still has a sense of humor beneath the depression and the fear. But then a family moves in across the street, and Julianne Moore is the mom, and Gary Oldman is the dad. They've got a teenage son, and the teenage son shows up, and he's like really earnest and sweet, and seems harmless enough, but she lets him in. And then Julianne Moore shows up, and she's fabulous, like so fabulous, and she's so funny, and just the spark that Anna needs, and they get drunk together, and they share secrets, and she's so fantastic that it makes you wonder, like, is she real? Is she a figment of her imagination or is she real? But then, because she's the woman in the window, Anna thinks she sees Julianne Moore getting stabbed by her husband in the kitchen across the street, which sets up a whole rabbit hole of what's real, what's not, and 911 calls and online investigations. And the possibility of what's at stake here is always more tantalizing than what it really ends up being. And it's an incredible cast. And Joe Wright directed this, who did Atonement and did Pride and Prejudice. And so he's known for this really beautifully showy, fluid camera work. And that is true here as well. Bruno Delbonnel is the cinematographer here, who shot like Inside Llewyn Davis. I mean, so it looks fantastic. There's incredible style and craft on display here and some good performances. And then it all just ends with like a shrug. Like once you learn what's really happening, it's like,
Yeah. You also Jennifer Jason Leigh, who plays the woman who actually, or says she's actually Gary Oldman's wife, which is part of the complicating factor here as far as like what did the woman in the window see, and when, or did she? You know.
Also, there's also Wyatt Russell, who is her downstairs tenant, and there's Anthony Mackie on the phone as her ex-husband.
Yes.
So we have Falcon and John Walker, but never at the same place at the same time.
And no Sebastian Stan, alas. Yeah, this is one of those movies where it's like, you know, in his book Adventures in the Screen Trade, William Goldman talks about how these, you know, the whole root of the nobody knows anything rule about show business is that you have this movie whose pedigree is unassailable. You know, you've got Joe Wright, you've got this best-selling novel, and Tracy Letts is adapting it. This incredibly stellar cast, and you know, great cinematographer, and all of these factors, and then the results are just kind of like, meh. And the thing is, like, Joe Wright is so clearly like not even trying to pretend that he's not doing a Hitchcock movie. One of the first things you see in this movie is a frame of Jimmy Stewart in Rear Window. And over the course of the movie, she's watching like Laura, which is a movie about somebody who's murdered, but then isn't the person who got murdered. It's just like, oh my God, it's shameless with that stuff. And you've really got to deliver your own movie if you're going to shout out to that many better movies.
Exactly. Like, what are you doing? Like, don't say it like these are perfect examples of the genre to judge my own film against. Like,
here are some movies you wish you were watching instead.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's like if you're gonna steal, sure, steal from Hitchcock, but there should be like tension in your own film. There's never any real tension here, but there are some moments that are very sad, and as an exploration of grief.
Yeah, Amy Adams
had potential.
Amy Adams is acting the shit out of this. Like, she's way better than this movie deserves. And if you find yourself still watching it in the second hour, it's because of her. But even that single performance is not enough to sort of like sell this thing. You're right. There are these moments where certain reveals early on are like, oh, you know, but yeah, by the end of it, it's just like, eh.
Yeah, I like this a lot more than you guys did. It mostly worked for me, and I kind of was caught up in the mystery of it because you're not sure if, you know, there's a point very early on when Tracy lets the psychologist or psychiatrist says, you know, warns her about the side effects with the medication and don't drink when you're having it. So that kind of sets you up like, oh, this woman is seeing things.
Yeah, unreliable narrator.
Right. And that kept me guessing enough. Now, what bothered me is this, you know, the specific scenes where everything gets explained, you know, at the climax of the movie was just, I think, poorly handled and, you know, not well written and kind of just dumb. Or if not dumb, like it wasn't menacing enough, right? And that's like when you finally get your villain, it's not menacing enough to really pay off what I actually bought into this whole mystery and kind of her confusion and her fear going outside. I love the scene in the kitchen with Julianne Moore and Amy Adams. And that made me think
with Brian Tyree Henry are really good.
Well, but that specific scene made me think of the scene in the restaurant in Heat between De Niro and Pacino. Like, you've got these two just amazing actors, just, you know, ostensibly just chit-chatting, and it's amazing.
Magnetic,
right? Yeah. And so this kind of worked for me. I thought that if you're, you know, for a Netflix movie, I thought that this was a good example of a decent enough mystery. And I actually think it would work better in the theater. I actually kind of am sad that we didn't get to see this in the theater, because I think this cavernous house that she lives in, I think only seeing, you know, it adds this kind of almost an irony, not irony, but it adds an element to her agoraphobia,
right? Because
it's not like she lives in some tiny apartment and is able to get out. This place is huge, and it feels
is rich New York kind of apartment.
Well, but it also feels empty, right? Because she's living there by herself, and it really does feel like, I mean, yes, she's got the tenant downstairs, but it feels like this is too much space for her. And is that adding to her agoraphobia because she's too open just in the house that her family no longer lives in? Yeah.
I love when Julianne Moore goes, yeah, I'd hate to be trapped in this shitty house.
Well, yeah. So the way it's shot, though, is that it feels cavernous, but also claustrophobic. And so you have like these shots like from the top of the skylight, you know, very Hitchcockian, down the staircase. You know something bad's going to happen when you see that the first time. You don't have that kind of shot just for the hell of it. You know?
I got to tell you, the first time they look up at that skylight, I immediately thought of Dick Van Patten in High Anxiety, in that scene where he's like, I feel like I'm a spider trapped in a web, and he's in the it's the outline of that big French window.
Yeah, this is Yeah, the scene where they're drinking in the kitchen also reminded me of A Simple Favor with Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively,
yeah.
how they're two women who were extremely different, but like the alcohol kind of breaks down the awkwardness between them and they're filling each other out. And it's two really great performances and the back and forth of it. And there are individual moments that really work. This movie is really disappointing. People are savaging this movie. For a while, it was at like 21, 22%. Like people who aren't prone to hyperbole, friends of ours, are saying it's terrible. Like, I don't think it's terrible.
But it is the kind of Rotten Tomato thing where even if you read the positive, like the fresh tomatoes, they're all like, this doesn't really work. Like, this is kind of a disappointment. So it's, I think it's, well, I think you read that list of names of who's behind this and you think, well, this is going to be something. And it's just kind of something.
Yeah. I'm saying 4.8.
I said 4.5. I think there are some moments that pop, but overall, I just found it kind of wanting.
Mm-hmm.
No, see, it worked for me. I won't say it's just okay. It's good. I give it a 7.
Okay. Our number's a 5.4. The woman in the window, she's there. She's watching you, and you can watch her on Netflix.
And you'll know Disney didn't even like, we'll just dump it on Hulu. Like, we'll at least manage to sell it to Netflix. Like that's what that pedigree bought them in the end, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching, you guys. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. Christy and I are still talking about The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu. Next week, we're going to begin looking into the Underground Railroad from Amazon Prime from Barry Jenkins, which people are saying is just amazing. And we're very excited to talk about it. And until then, see you next time. Bye.